You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron, live with Ethan Haristodoulou.
Welcome back, everyone, to more of the Greeks Gridiron. I am Ethan Haristodoulou, and today on this April 25th, 2022, Week 2 of the USFL has come and gone and wrapped up, and we are doing our power rankings for all 8 teams in the league. So make sure you sit back, hit that like button, comment down below your rankings for all 8 teams if you wish to do so, and make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on the rest of the content I got coming your guys' way. So here's the deal. The USFL, week number 2. The first game of the weekend, it was funny. It was 10-6 game. Offense did not look really good. And then we got a couple of really good competitive games after that. And then a massive blowout to wrap up the week there. The Breakers completely shutting down the Tampa Bay Bandits in dominating fashion from start to finish. It was never really much of a ball game. So starting with the power rankings here, we begin at number 8 and we'll work our way all the way up to number 1. And to start things off, we begin with who was at number 7 last week and drops down a spot to number 8, the Michigan Panthers, who are now 0-2. And quite honest, this team, even though they were able to wipe the slate clean, they got rid of all the turnovers that they had this past week, the week prior, still just can't seem to find a way to put the offense together. And that's unfortunate. Shea Patterson seemed to be really just uncomfortable and under extreme duress the entirety of the game. The offensive line only allowed 2 sacks, but it felt like the pressure was on and Patterson could just never really get comfortable while he was in the pocket. And like I said, they were able to, clean up all the turnovers from last week. It felt like they fumbled 17 times. They were able to get rid of all of that, no turnovers, and still failed to really get anything going and came away with nothing more than just 6 points on the day. I do want to credit the defense, though. They were able to get an interception off of Perez and slow him down after a pretty strong week 1 start for him. They were able to force a fumble as well, create a couple of turnovers, and essentially keep the game within reach. But it just really boiled down to this offense's inability to get anything going here. I like the Panthers' defense a lot more than I do their offense right now, and I'm really hoping they can get something going here. The ground game had about 100 and some odd yards, and I don't really know if, even that really meant too much over the course of the game, because it just felt like they really had 100 and some odd yards on the ground, because that was really like all they could get going for any sort of offense. It was just moving the ball on the ground, and it wasn't even like large chunks or anything like that. So a lot of work to do for the Panthers. They're sitting at 0-2. They're at the bottom of the list here at number 8. Coming in at number 7, moving up 1 spot as they were the number 8 team last week, the Pittsburgh Maulers. Despite an 0-2 start to the year, they're getting bumped up a spot because their offense showed some signs of life after last week's abysmal performance offensively, and I'm excited to see that their offense had some signs of life because it felt like last week was more an issue of play calling than it was the actual talent level that they have over there. Josh Love, handful of turnovers. There are some things he needs to clean up with his game, but other than that, it felt like, the Maulers actually had some sort of competent game plan going into this one here. I'm interested in why they opted, because I believe Josh Love had a couple of interceptions. I'm curious as to why they didn't opt to use Kyle Lauletta at all. With how new the league is and teams still trying to figure out what they have going, we look at a team like, the Generals seem to be kind of jumping back and forth between quarterbacks here. They can't really seem to settle in on who they want as QB1 yet. I'm surprised that a team like the Maulers, who have been kind of struggling offensively a little bit, haven't really gone like in between the 2 QBs more just to kind of see what they have in Lauletta. I was a little bit more excited about Lauletta than I was Josh Love for the Maulers here. So it's interesting to me, at least, to see that they're, kind of pounding the table as QB1 Josh Love. But I do want to give credit to the defense. The Maulers' defense is definitely the bright spot of this team. They were able to create 3 turnovers. They notched 3 sacks as well. If the passing game can just avoid the turnovers that they've been dealing with the last couple of weeks, this team can honestly be formidable because the running game's pretty solid as well. It's not like by any means a top running game in the league, but they're somewhere in the middle of the pack there. And if the passing game can just, again, clean things up, the Maulers have a shot. It's just a matter of putting that together and cleaning up the mistakes that Josh Love is making if they're going to continue to run with him, or maybe if they opt to go with Lauletta here in week 3 to kind of see what they can get out of him. I think that every single team in this league will benefit from picking a single quarterback and running with them. But I do understand it's going to take a little bit of time to maybe settle in on a QB1 if you don't have one that's already outperforming the other. And I feel like the Maulers are another one of those teams where they could use a little bit more time to kind of toy with their QB1 and see who really should be the starter. But it seems like Josh Love might be the guy there just based off the lack of reps Lauletta's getting. Coming in at number 6, and these guys are free falling down the board. I had them at number 3 last week. I did not buy into the hype. I saw a lot of people have them ranked number 1. I saw very few places have them ranked number 2. I was bold enough to put them at number 3, and quite honestly, they probably should have been lower because coming in at number 6, the Tampa Bay Bandits getting absolutely slaughtered by the New Orleans Breakers this past week, 34-3. The game was never really close. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the Breakers had 14 points by the end of the first quarter, if I'm remembering that correctly. If not, it was right at the start of the second quarter. Tough day for the offense. Te'amu did not really look great. The O-line did not really look great. The running game wasn't really doing too much, and they just could not really get anything going against this Breakers defense. The defense, which has been built around and if you listened to the broadcast at all on television, I felt like they were talking about this all game, so I guess I have to bring it up here. But the defense was built around size and experience and, big name school players and things like that. And I think that's why a lot of people had betting odd favorites on the Bandits going into this game here. But you could see from the middle of the game when it was 21-3 and we're still in the second quarter here, a ton of Bandits players, hands on their hips, huffing and puffing, having such a hard time keeping up with this Breakers offense that was just firing on all cylinders. And it makes me wonder, are the Bandits actually this bad? Did they benefit from playing against a Maulers team that's offensive game plan was clearly not well put together last week? Or was it just a really bad mismatch where the Maulers, again, they're based on size and more so experience and things like that. Whereas the Breakers team, again, if you listen to the broadcast, it felt like they talked about this at least 100 times towards the end of the game. The Breakers are built more around athleticism and speed, playmaking ability. Was it just a mismatch? I don't know, but this was my game of the week, the Bandits and the Breakers. Even though I didn't have the Bandits ranked as highly as some other people, I still thought that they were a good unit just because of who they have on the roster. And my God, was I wrong? It was probably it was the least competitive game of the weekend. So I'm curious where they go from here. Jordan Te'amu, for all the hype that he has had around him, looked pretty good last week. Did not look great this week. And Kyle Sloter was my favorite quarterback taken in this draft, and he went to the Breakers, and he looked every bit of the part of a guy who's played with 26 different NFL teams in his career. So we'll have to see where the Bandits go from here. I'm not quite sure what to make of them because, again, the Maulers' game plan last week was so bad that it doesn't surprise me that the Bandits basically blew them out of the water 17-3. But now having faced another team that showed really good defense last week and then, if not even better defense this week, I don't know. I don't really know what to make of the Bandits right now. So I'm having them at number 6, and I'm pretty comfortable with that there. Moving on to number 5. They were at number 5 last week. They did not move, staying put where they are because I'm still not 100% sure what to make of this team. The Houston Gamblers. They're sitting at 1-1. Clayton Thorson, he had a couple of touchdowns, but he also had 3 interceptions. I said this last week, and I'll say it again. The Gamblers' offense does not really get me too excited. They had a couple of red zone trips that ended in field goals, and another one right outside the end zone that ended in a field goal as well. The passing game definitely holds them back. They had Bahar come in for like 6 passes. He only had 9 yards. I said last week, and this is another thing I'll say again this week, I want to see Bahar get a start and see how he actually fares as the QB1, getting, maybe first team reps in practice in the lead up to that week. I just don't. Clayton Thorson does not do it for me, so I don't have a strong belief in him. On the defensive side of things, though, I like the Gamblers' defense. I think the Gamblers' defense is definitely the strong side of this team here. They continue to be a strength. They had the pick 6. They had a forced fumble as well. I also wanted to shout out linebacker Donald Payne. The dude had 15 tackles. It felt like he was making a play every other opportunity he had. So the defense is still the strong side of this team. And while the Gamblers did win last week and then I had a tough, fairly close loss this week, better quarterback play is definitely necessary for this team to succeed. If Thorson can clean up his turnovers and avoid throwing 3 interceptions in a game, then yeah, this would be a better unit. But I don't buy into the Clayton Thorson being QB1 camp at all. I would like to see again Bahar get his shot. Maybe he'll get it this week. Maybe he won't. I don't know. But I would like to see him get QB1 reps and, have him start the game and kind of roll with him and see what happens. But we'll have to see what the Gamblers do there. For the top 4. Coming in at number 4, they were also at number 4 last week. They do not move here, so my middle teams did not move anywhere. They're staying put. The New Jersey Generals, they're sitting at 1-1. This was a rough game for them. Pretty ugly. They did scrape out the W, though. I'll give them that. But this was not a good game offensively for them. The defense, though, did look solid, shutting down the Panthers. The back and forth between Luis Perez and the DeAndre Johnson at quarterback is another one of those things where I understand why it's happening, but it really bothers me. I would like to see teams just settle in on a quarterback. Luis Perez, I would say, is probably the better thrower, whereas DeAndre Johnson gives you a better chance to kind of move the ball more because of his athleticism. If they're going to be bringing in Johnson as much as they do, they might as well just have him be QB1. And again, I think Perez might be the better thrower, but DeAndre Johnson can just bring more to the table in terms of his athleticism. And I feel like any quarterback will tell you the same thing. They benefit more from just being able to stay in the game and keep the rhythm going, not, playing for a few plays, then getting pulled out and swapped in. QB is a position of repetition and chemistry and just continuous and being in the inconsistency, I guess you could say. You need to have a guy that's in there and in there for every single one of those reps, not playing this whole swap in and out thing. You look at like the NFL and you look at a team like the Raiders last year, they had Marcus Mariota on the roster and he came in for like maybe a dozen, to 20 plays at most through the entirety of the season because he was mixed in for special packages. If you were using Perez as QB1 and DeAndre Johnson was doing something like that, maybe once or twice a game, sure, that makes sense. But like you're swapping your QBs in and out way too much. And I don't like that about them. I think that their offense needs a little bit more consistency. They looked a lot better last week. And I know that they were playing around with QBs last week as well, but they need to figure something out there at the quarterback 1 position. Again, I understand why it's going on with some of these teams, but I would just settle in on someone and roll with them or don't at all, or, go to the other person. I don't know. I just want to see more consistency at the QB position for all of these teams. I think it'll lead to better offensive play. But I do, again, want to praise the defense. They did a good job, stomped out the Panthers offensively, did not allow much going on. They brought some pressure as well. Solid game for the Generals defensively. And again, when I look at my power rankings for this week, 5, 4, and maybe even 3 as well, very close group here. There's not much separating these teams. 3's maybe a little bit more separated from 4 and 5, but like if you wanted to swap the Generals and the Gamblers on my power rankings here, I would not argue it too much with you. I had a hard time kind of picking out the middle teams here in this grouping. But coming in at number 3, they were the number 6 team for me last week, and I probably should have had them higher, but I wasn't. Again, we're still figuring things out here. We're early in the league. We don't necessarily know what everyone has. Probably should have had them a little bit higher because I did like what they did offensively last week, and I really enjoyed what they did offensively this week. The Philadelphia Stars, sitting at 1-1. They go from 6 to 3, jumping up 3 spots here. Brian Scott had a really good day. 26 of 37 for 272 yards. He had 3 touchdowns and only 1 interception there. while wide receiver Maurice Alexander, 8 catches, 87 yards, a couple of touchdowns for himself. Holland and Colburn continue to be the 1-2 punch, the running back position I was praising them for as last week as well. I like this group on the offense. I think it's a solid team. The offensive line is definitely one of the better ones. They feel very cohesive and like they're running and gelling together really, really well. Couple that with the defense that's been pretty strong as well. The secondary had a couple of big-time interceptions last week to close out that game, and Channing Stribling had the big game-sealing interception at the end to put the game away. The Stars feel like a team that, despite the fact that they look like a Carl's Jr. logo, they're looking pretty good offensively. I like how they play defensively as well. They keep themselves in the game, and even if they're letting up yards and they're letting up scores here and there, they come through when it matters most. I like what the Stars are doing, and at number 3, I'm feeling pretty good about them. Coming in at number 2, my number 2 team last week, and they stay in the number 2 spot this week, the Birmingham Stallions. Love what this team is doing. Jamar Smith is QB1. Did not like Alex Magoo last week. I'm glad that Jamar got the opportunity to really run the team this week. Awesome week, dude. That 65-yard bomb of a touchdown, fantastic. Loved every second of that game watching him run the offense, but that play right there, that was beautiful. That was exactly what Jamar brings to the table. He has athleticism, he has a cannon for an arm, and as long as he reined in his accuracy, like I was saying he needed to last week, and he had a few misses here and there this game as well. He's still working on it. But overall, Smith brings far more to the table than Magoo does, in my opinion. Marable on the ground definitely looked good. He was averaging 4.8 yards a game, so you have the solid passing game, a really good running game, and you have like a trickery with the offense as well because Jamar Smith can run with his legs. I want to shout out kicker Brandon Aubrey because he accounted for 9 points on the day as well. I believe he had 3 extra points and a couple of field goals to boot. So shout out to the kicker. Give him some love. He was a part of that W. 9 points credited his way. And the defense led by Lorenzo Burns, man. 3 interceptions, 2 of them by Burns. The Birmingham Stallions definitely look like one of the most complete teams in the league, and I respect what they're doing over there right now. They have made all the right choices. They made the right choice in starting Jamar this week to see what he could bring, and he ultimately brought them to a W. I like the Stallions. I love the crowds that they bring. I wish that there were more larger crowds attending some of these games. Optically, it reminds me of the bubble for the NFL, and I wish that that wasn't the case. I understand financially why the USFL is doing what they're doing. I just wish that they could figure out a way to get more fans in that building, and I don't know how they're going to do it. I'm not a marketing guy, but if they can fill those stadiums just a little bit more to bring some more excitement, hell, start giving away. I mean, the tickets are only $10 anyways, so you're practically giving them away, and they're good for every single game that week, but I wish that there was just some way that they could try to bring in fans more for the other games. Obviously, the Stallions games, the fans are turning out. It's obvious why that's happening as well. They're in Birmingham. It's the Stallions. But I would just love to see the USFL figure out a way to get some more fans in the building for some of these other games as well. And then last and certainly not least, at number 1, the New Orleans Breakers, the best defense in the league through 2 weeks right now, and you're looking at probably the best offense as well with the way that they are moving the football right now. I said last week that Kyle Sloter needed to clean up his game a little bit, and did he do that this week? 25 of 39, 266 yards and a pair of touchdowns to go with it. The ground game of Jordan Ellis and TJ Logan continues to be a 1-2 punch. I brought them up last week. Them and the Stars had a really good grouping at running back there. 136 yards total. They had a touchdown between the pair as well. And then Jonathan Adams, my goodness, man, that one-handed catch that he had later in the game, that was like, the game was already kind of starting to peel away and be more of like a like a lopsided affair. But when Jonathan Adams made that one-handed catch, it kind of confirmed to me that this was going to be the Breakers game to win, and that was a very deflating gain in play for the defense of the Bandits. On the flip side thing, though, the defense of the Breakers continues to just, like the stat line that I have written out here, 4 sacks, 10 tackles for loss, a couple of interceptions, 6 pass breakups. Devin Bellamy is a bona fide leader on that D. It felt like the cameras were on him quite a bit this past week, and that defense is going to be a problem. The Breakers have announced that they are the number one team, and that last week wasn't a fluke. We did it again to the presumed number one team in the league. I've had them ranked number one since last week. I buy into defense when I see good defense, and when they did what they did last week against the Stars, who I thought the offense, pretty solid grouping, they did it again to a Bandits team that, again, looked pretty solid last week. However, they ran into a wall this week. The Breakers are probably the most complete team in this league right now, and I am here for it. Love the Breakers, love what they're doing there defensively. Defense wins championships, and if they're playing defense like that all season long, it's going to be a long year for the other 7 teams in this league. But that is my power rankings for the USFL for week 2. Again, comment down below. Let me know what you guys think. Hit that like button. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Have a good one.